I'm not really sure how to start this. I haven't told anyone the full story, not even my sister. And I've never been the kind of person who believes in, the supernatural. But what happened to me last year wasn't just weird. It wasn't just disturbing. It was evil. And I swear to God, it's still not over. I'm a tattoo artist. Been one for about 9 years now. I rent a small space inside a converted garage in Chicago. Nothing fancy, just 2 chairs, some old band posters, and enough tools to do clean, pro-level work. I've inked all kinds of stuff over the years. Dragons, skulls, portraits, religious symbols, even some weird requests like this one guy who wanted barbed wire around his eyes. But nothing prepared me for the man who walked in last winter. It was a Tuesday, snow outside, slow day. I was just sketching when the bell on the door jingled. This guy steps in, mid-40s, tall, pale, like really pale. Black coat, gloves, no visible tattoos. He didn't say hi or introduce himself. He just walked up to my chair and said, "I need the skin of the saint." At first, I thought it was some kind of joke, so I chuckled and said, "That's a new one. You got a reference?" He just stared at me. Then he pulled a small photo out of his coat pocket. It was horrifying. A close-up of someone's back, skin stitched together with rough black thread. The image looked old, sepia tone, bloodstains, like it was taken on a film camera in a war zone. "I want this," he said. "Exactly as it is. No color, no modifications, just the mark." The mark. I hadn't even noticed it until then. Etched into the skin was a sigil, a kind of star but with curling ends and jagged edges. It looked like a cross between a compass and a spider. Something about that symbol made my stomach twist. I should have said no. But the guy pulled out a thick envelope. Cash. Thick stacks of hundreds. More than I'd make in 2 months. He said it has to be exact. Same size, same placement. And one more thing, I'll bring the ink. That's when I hesitated. "No offense," I said, "but I don't use outside materials. Health codes." He slid a small jar across the counter. Dark liquid. Thick, blackish red. He said only 3 words. "It's consecrated ink." Now, I've seen some weird shit in the tattoo world, but this felt off. Still, I was behind on rent. And honestly, the curiosity, it got the better of me. We scheduled the session for Friday night. He said he'd be back at 10 p.m., after closing. I thought that was odd, but whatever. Friday rolls around, snow's heavier, the whole street was basically shut down. I kept the lights low and waited. He showed up right on time. Gloves off now, his hands were dry, cracked skin, fingernails like they'd been gnawed down to the flesh. I asked him for his name. He didn't answer, just took off his coat and laid flat on the table, shirt off, back exposed. He whispered, "Begin." As I dipped the needle into that strange ink, I swear, I heard something. Whispers. Real faint, like they were coming from inside the jar. I shook it off, started outlining the star. As I worked, his skin started to feel different. Not like normal flesh, it was dry, leathery, almost stretched. At one point, the needle hit something that wasn't flesh at all. It was like stone. The buzzing machine stopped dead like it had hit bone. The guy didn't flinch, didn't bleed. I said, "You okay?" He said nothing, just grunted, "Keep going." I didn't want to. I really didn't. But my hands, they kept moving. I wasn't in control anymore. When I finally finished, he sat up, walked to the mirror, and stared at his back. He smiled. Then he said something that chills me even now. "Now it's your turn." I laughed nervously. "What?" He walked up close, too close, and placed his fingers on my arm. His skin was ice cold, and his eyes, they weren't normal. Yellowish, like he was sick or dying. He whispered, "The skin of the saint is not just a symbol. It's a door. And now that you've drawn it, you belong to it too." He left without another word. Didn't take the jar, didn't ask for change, just disappeared into the snow. That night, I had the first dream. I was in a church. Old, broken, burned out. Candles melted into skulls. On the altar, the same symbol, painted in blood. A woman stood in the pews, crying, but her face was missing. Behind me, someone whispered, "You made the mark. Now it's under your skin." I woke up soaked in sweat. There were scratches on my arms, deep ones, like I'd clawed myself in my sleep. Things got worse after that. Customers stopped showing up. The lights flickered constantly. The jar, it started leaking, even though I never opened it again. Worse than that, I started hearing things. At night, something moved inside the shop. Not rats, bigger, heavier. One night I came in and found the mark carved into the mirror, perfectly symmetrical. I never drew it there. I tried throwing the jar away, left it in a dumpster behind the bar 3 blocks down. It was back on my counter the next morning. Sealed, untouched, still whispering. Then came the rot. My hands started to blister. My fingers cracked open. I wore gloves to work but couldn't tattoo anymore. Every time the needle buzzed, that voice returned. "You made the mark. Now it will unmake you." I finally snapped. I drove to a priest, showed him the photo, asked if he'd seen it before. He went pale, told me to leave. All he said was, "The skin of the saint was used to bind a demon during the plague years. Anyone who replicates it feeds it." That was when I realized I didn't ink that man's back. I freed something. I closed the shop, left the state, moved to Nevada. But the dreams kept coming. And a few weeks ago, I saw someone at the gas station. Same pale skin, same eyes. He didn't come close, just smiled and pulled up his sleeve. The mark was there, fresh, still red. And now, mine is too. I found it last night, on my chest, beneath the skin, etched into me, as if it's growing. I don't think I'll survive the next dream. But if you see a man with yellow eyes, don't speak to him. Don't look at the mark. And whatever you do, don't take the ink. I never believed in curses. Not until my wedding day. They called it the Black Wedding. At first, I thought it was just folklore, some old Cajun legend buried in bayou superstition. But it was real, and it took everything from me. My name is Riley, and if you're hearing this, don't ever marry into a family you barely know. Especially in southern Louisiana. Especially if they say the wedding is traditional. I met Camille at a small art show in New Orleans. She was stunning. Soft-spoken, wild eyes, hair like midnight. We connected instantly. Within 6 months, I'd proposed. Her family lived in the Deep South, in a town I'd never heard of called Saint-Delphine, population under 300. No cell reception, dirt roads, houses on stilts. Camille hadn't been home in years. She said her family was old school, traditional, but they were happy we were getting married. So we packed up and drove down for the ceremony. She said her mama wanted to plan everything herself. A proper wedding, she said, like our ancestors had. As we pulled into St. Delphine, I felt it immediately. The air was thick, like syrup. Cicadas screamed from the trees. The roads were empty. Camille's family home was massive, falling apart in places, but still standing tall. Painted bone white, dozens of old shutters, a cross nailed to the front door. Her mother, Delilah, greeted us at the steps. She didn't hug me, didn't smile. She just looked me up and down and said, "You'll do." Inside, the house smelled like dried herbs and something older, like wet wood and rust. Family photos covered the walls, but every single one had the faces scratched out. Camille was tense all week. Anytime I asked about the ceremony, she dodged the question. On Wednesday night, I overheard her and her mother arguing in the hallway, something about the offering. The cycle can't be broken. When I confronted Camille, she looked terrified. She said there were rules in St. Delphine, traditions, and we had to follow them, or else the land would turn. I laughed, until she showed me her cousin's wedding photo. The groom's face had melted in the picture, literally, like the ink had been burned. She whispered. He said no to the ritual. 3 days later, they found him hanging in the chapel with a smile carved into his face. The night before the wedding, I couldn't sleep. I heard chanting from outside. When I peeked through the window, I saw people, neighbors maybe, gathered in the woods behind the house, holding candles. They were wearing black veils, even the children. Camille was gone from the bed. When she returned, her hands were wet. I asked what she was doing. She said, washing away the name I was born with. The ceremony was held in the old family chapel, a rotting wooden structure behind the house swallowed by vines. It was silent inside. No music, no decorations, just a black altar and a single mirror on the wall behind it. Camille wore a black wedding dress sewn with crow feathers. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her lips stitched with black thread. Yes, stitched. I screamed, but no one moved. No one even blinked. Delilah stepped forward and handed me a knife. You may now seal the vow, she said. I refused. That's when the doors slammed shut behind me. The guests, faceless behind their veils, started chanting. The mirror behind the altar began to ripple like water. Camille mouthed something through her stitched lips. Delilah turned to me and said, "Marry the spirit, or die in its shadow." Then I saw it. In the mirror, something moved. A figure. Tall, thin, with no eyes and a mouth that took up half its face. I dropped the knife. The chapel screamed. Yes, screamed. The walls shook. Blood poured from the cracks in the ceiling, and Camille began floating. I ran, broke a window, crawled through thorns and mud until I hit the road. No one followed me. No one had to, because something followed me anyway. That night, I stayed in an abandoned gas station 2 towns over, and the mirror in the restroom, it showed the chapel behind me. It's been 8 months. I don't sleep. When I do, I see her, Camille, in that black dress, mouth sewn shut. I tried burning the wedding photo they gave me. It wouldn't burn. And now every mirror I look into, every window reflection, I see a figure in the background, watching, waiting. They say if you refuse the black wedding, you carry the bride's curse, that she becomes your shadow, never far behind. And I believe it now, because I haven't seen my reflection in weeks, only hers. So if someone ever invites you to a rural wedding and it's in a town that doesn't show up on the map, don't go. Don't say I do. And whatever you do, never kiss the bride. After that night, I moved 3 states away, changed my name, got rid of my phone. I even stopped using mirrors. But no matter where I went, she followed. It started small, reflections acting weird, showing me standing still when I was walking, showing me smiling when I was crying. And then it started showing Camille, or something that looked like her, but wrong. Her mouth was always stitched, her wedding dress now blackened, charred at the edges, her eyes hollow. I took a crowbar to every mirror in my apartment. It didn't help, because it wasn't the mirrors. A few months later, I got a package. No return address. Inside was a VHS tape and a single note. You're not the first. The tape showed footage from the late 90s. A man, maybe early 30s, talking into a camcorder. He looked terrified, kept repeating, "Don't marry into the Landrys. The wedding isn't for you. It's for what's buried beneath their land." He mentioned something else too, the groom's curse. Once you're chosen, your soul's already part of the contract. I should have let it go, but I couldn't. I had to know. So I went back. This time during the day, alone. St. Delphine was quieter than before. No people, no birds, just heat, thick and heavy. The house was still there, but it was falling apart, rotting from the inside. The porch sagged, windows shattered. The front door was wide open. Inside, every picture frame was empty, scratched out completely. Even the floorboards seemed to breathe. That's when I found the basement door. The stairs creaked like screams. The deeper I went, the colder it got. At the bottom was a stone room, like a crypt. On the walls were paintings, dozens of brides, all faceless. And in the center, a large circle carved into the floor, symbols, dried blood, and a dress. Camille's dress. It sat folded neatly on a stone altar, still covered in feathers and soot. But underneath it was a wedding ring. Not mine, someone else's, several actually, laid out like offerings. That's when I heard the whisper.
Say I do.
I ran, but the door slammed shut. The room went black. Suddenly, I was back in the chapel. But it wasn't a memory. It was a dream, a vision, or something worse. Dozens of men stood in front of the altar, some in tuxedos, some in modern clothes. All of them were hollowed, skin gray, eyes glassy, grooms. Camille stood at the altar, her mouth still sewn shut. And behind her, a voice boomed from the dark. They are wed until the world forgets them. And you, Riley, you broke the bond. I screamed, but no sound came out. My tongue had turned to ash. I woke up in the middle of a graveyard. My wrists were bruised. My ring finger had a mark on it. A circle burned into the skin. The chapel was gone. I drove to the nearest library and spent days researching, and that's when I found it. A small, archived newspaper from 1957. Mass groom disappearances plague southern Louisiana town. 10 men. All vanished within months of marrying women from the Landry bloodline. The article claimed the women were part of a cult. One survivor, just one, claimed their wives changed after the wedding. I found her. Estelle Broussard, the last surviving Landry bride. 83 years old, living in a nursing home under a fake name. She didn't speak at first, just stared at the window. But when I mentioned Camille, she turned slowly and said, "You married a Landry girl?" I nodded. She sighed. "They told me I could save my husband if I offered another in his place. I refused." She showed me her hands. They were covered in scars. I still hear the veil rustling when I sleep. Before I left, she handed me something. A Bible, but the pages were blank. Except for one. It read, "He who breaks the bond must bind it anew, or fade into the veil." That night, my apartment flooded with black feathers. My body began to ache, bones cracking, skin tightening. And then I saw the shadow of a veil pass over my reflection. Camille was behind me, still, watching. And this time, she whispered, "Say it." I don't know what I'm becoming, but I know this. The wedding never ended. The groom never leaves. And Camille, she's not a ghost. She's a bride of the veil. She's still looking for her vows, still looking for me. If you ever get invited to a wedding where the bride wears black, don't RSVP. Don't attend. And whatever you do, don't say her name 3 times in a mirror, because she'll hear you. And once she's watching, the only way out is death or marriage. And death is kinder.